Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Late Tuesday night, we get the first iteration of the college football playoff rankings. Now, while many college football fans and certainly the national media are going to war about Notre Dame at 10 and Miami at 18, even though Miami beat Notre Dame earlier in the season, one of the other bigger takeaways from my point of view is that the college football playoff committee is not a huge fan of the resume that Oregon has built up until this point. I mean, the AP poll has Oregon as the number 6 team in the country. The college football playoff committee has them as the number 9 team. Does Oregon, number one, we'll talk about, do we agree with that ranking? Because I got some thoughts and opinions on that. Number two, I think the most prevalent conversation is, does Oregon need to be perfect in the month of November to ensure they make it to the college football playoffs? Because I'll say this, go look at that November schedule. It is not an easy one. And it starts this Saturday going on the road to Kinnick Stadium playing the Iowa Hawkeyes. You also have to play USC. You also have to go on the road and play Washington, which is another top 25 team at the end of the year. Does Oregon need to run the table to ensure that they make it to the college football playoffs? That's the other conversation I want to get into, and I want to give my thoughts and opinions on what game concerns me the most. Now, before we get into it, as always, the Oregon fans, let it fly. Hey, most notably, look, we can agree or disagree on where Oregon is at right now. We can all agree that they control their own destiny. What I'm more intrigued about from the Oregon fans, what game on Oregon's schedule, the remaining part of that schedule in the month of November, what game concerns you the most? Because I got some takes on that for sure. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Now, do I agree with Oregon coming in at number 9? I'm not going to bang the table for Oregon being much higher. I will say this, though. I probably have them a little bit higher. And the fact of the matter is, I look at that Penn State result at the end of September and say, I'm not willing to act like that was not a very impressive win. It was a very impressive win at the time. Now it continues to look less impressive as the season plays out. Look, that Penn State team, there's not a lot of differences between the Penn State team that we saw late September that Oregon beat and the team that we saw play in the semifinals of the college football playoffs last year. The way I view that result is that Dan Lanning and a young Oregon Duck football team went on the road to Penn State, and I think they broke Penn State. I think they broke James Franklin. I think they broke that locker room, and I think they broke that fan base. And I think a large part of the reason why Penn State has fallen apart in the back half of 2025 has a lot to do with Oregon winning that football game. Because you look at the narrative around Penn State, it was James Franklin can't get over the hump, can't win those kind of games. And you saw that once again. And when that happened, the Penn State fan base turned on James Franklin. I think that shook the Penn State locker room. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I understand if you want to look at that result a little bit differently. I am not willing to get up here and act like that wasn't a very, very impressive win. To go on the road, night game, whiteout, and beat a Penn State team that was currently top 5 team in the country. And so that's the reason they're at 9, is I think the committee looks at that result a little bit different. I'm not willing to say that win doesn't move the needle for me. Now, here's the other side of it. Oregon has plenty of opportunity in the back half of the year, in the month of November, to start notching those wins. This is they arguably have the most difficult remaining schedule out of almost any team in the country. And they go on the road and play Iowa this weekend. Then you get Minnesota, no buys, by the way, USC at home, and then on the road at Washington. Does Oregon need to be perfect? If Oregon wants to control their own destiny and not leave it into the committee's hands, I would say yes. But I do think there's a lot of realities where if Oregon drops a game, they still can get in, because even if they drop a game and go 3-1 in that 4-game stretch, that still includes 2 top 25 wins that Oregon has. Now, the reason you don't want to lose those games is because then all of a sudden, if you lose to Iowa and then run the table, Iowa's got that head-to-head over Oregon. If you lose to a team like USC, but win the rest of your games, USC's got that head-to-head over Oregon. Same thing for Washington. I do think that if Oregon wants to control their own destiny, you got to win every single game on their schedule. And I think that's how the committee's telling us too, with them putting them at 9. Now, here's the good news: you still control your own destiny, which is not a lot of other teams across the country can say that. What game concerns you? And here's the other thing I'll say is, like, if you asked me to pick every single one of those games, I'm picking Oregon in every single one of those matchups. What game let's rank them. Let's rank the games left on Oregon's schedule from most concern to least concern. And I'll start with the most concerned game I have. That is on the road playing Iowa. There's a reason that spread is inside of a touchdown. It's a very difficult place to play, and Iowa has this really unique ability to kind of drag you into the mud and play the game the way they want it to be played. Now, what I think favors Oregon here is that I think Oregon can play that kind of game against Iowa. Like, if you want to make it ugly and if you want to slow it down and you want to lean on run game and defense, well, Oregon's got top 15 defense in the country. And they got one of, if not the best rushing attacks in the country as well. So even if Iowa drags Oregon into the mud and makes it a little bit more of a slugfest, Big Ten slugfest, I still think Oregon is comfortable playing that kind of game. It's one of the things that has me so high on Oregon regardless, is they can win that kind of game, but they could also play a team like Ole Miss, get into a shootout, and be comfortable in that style as well. My biggest concern is what if you get the version of Dante Moore that we saw, at times against Indiana, or even at times against Wisconsin, where it's just uncomfortable, putting the ball in harm's way at times, kind of stuck in the mud. Because I'll say this about Iowa: if you leave it to the third and fourth quarter and that Oregon offense is struggling, I mean, they're really opportunistic on defense in terms of manufacturing points off turnovers. They're really good on special teams. Like, Iowa has those intangibles. There's a reason that Kirk Ferentz has had the success he's had with all the anemic offenses he's had. He knows how to win those kind of games late in the game because of special teams, because of difference-making plays on defense. If you get a version of Oregon's offense this weekend on the road against Iowa, that game could get a lot more hairier than you would like it. And Iowa loves those kind of games. Those are the kind of games Iowa excels in. Now, the next one is probably USC at home, maybe on the road at Washington. You could go either way. I'll say this: on the road at Washington maybe concerns me a little bit more, but I'll tell you why. If I'm an Oregon fan, I have some quiet confidence in both of those ones. I don't think either of those teams can deal with how Oregon wants to run the football. I look at a team like USC that has to go on the road to Eugene, Oregon, and say, number one, Lincoln Riley's been really, really bad on the road. It was a nice win on the road against Nebraska. USC has not been a very good road team over the last 2 years. Number two, USC has struggled to stop the run in a really meaningful way. I think Oregon would have the opportunity to do a very similar thing that Notre Dame did to USC a couple of weeks ago. That is, hey, we're going to run the football. We're going to slow this puppy down and say, hey, you might want this game to look like a shootout. We ain't going to let you play that game the way you want to play it. I don't think USC has the guys. I think USC maybe in the next 2 years might have the guys. But right now, I don't know if USC has the front seven to deal with the Oregon rushing attack. That's going to be a problem for USC. And you can go on the road and play Washington. Here's the thing with Washington is, man, they're not a super complete team, right? They have some flaws. When you have a quarterback like Damon Williams and you have a wide receiver like Denzel Boston and you have a running back like Jonah Coleman, I mean, that is one of the better trios that we see in this conference, and how explosive they can be and the playmaking ability all three of those cats have. I mean, that game certainly could get hairy, especially on the road, especially the environment that we know we're going to get late in the season, and we'll see what kind of weather we get in that one too. That one, but here's the thing, very similar to USC, I'll say the same thing. I really do favor Oregon in terms of what they have along the lines of scrimmage. Minnesota, to me, should be a comfortable win. We'll see how it plays out. And again, what I'll say this is like it's frustrating that Oregon is 9. It's a little bit lower than a lot of Oregon fans maybe would have expected. Ball's still in Oregon's hands, and that's all you can ask for at this point in the season. I'll say this too. I don't know if Oregon has a path to get a bye in the college football playoffs. I do think they have a path to host a college football playoff game, which might even be a little bit more beneficial considering what we saw from Oregon last year with that bye. That might help Oregon a little bit. Again, I'll round this conversation out the same way I've rounded out how I've talked about Oregon all year. This is a team to watch. Even though they're sitting at number 9, their firepower, their potential is about as high as anybody in the country. I think the bigger question mark here is you want to see Oregon continue to work towards their best version of themselves as they roll into the college football playoffs. Because if you get that, if you get Oregon firing on all cylinders, Evan Stewart may be coming back, this team has the ability to beat everybody in the country. There's zero question in my mind. We'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.